Hi, I'm CKnappenberger, and this is Module 5 for EDL 856, Understanding My Community, Davy Jones Middle School in New Milford, New Jersey. Looking at knowing customs and traditions. New Milford was founded in 1677. It's one of the first settlements that's found in the state of New Jersey. It's a very small, close-knit community. It's 2.5 square miles. So there's a lot of different community events that occur in which the entire town kind of shows up that are centered around the school. There's homecoming, which again is the football game, and there's a lot of people from town who come. There's an alumni event that weekend, and as well as the teachers are asked to come visit the alumni themselves. The Halloween Haunted House is run by the Drug Alliance it's a haunted house run by volunteers. So the teachers in the community volunteer, principals, staff, things like that, parents volunteer to kind of put on that haunted house. Memorial Day Parade, the Christmas tree lighting, we've got Santa Landing. Santa Landing is an event that's run through the police department as well as the schools, in which Santa lands on the football field from a helicopter to visit the students of New Milford, or the children in New Milford. We also have National Night Out, which is in August, where all the different community groups come out to kind of celebrate and have a night together. In the population, our population is about 18,000 in our population of New Milford in our 2.5 square miles. It's constantly increasing. New Milford is located inside Bergen County in New Jersey. Bergen County is a very desirable area. It's also a very expensive area to live in. And inside of Bergen County, New Milford is one of the less expensive towns to live in inside of the county with a nice school district. So our population is always increasing. They've also recently built new housing in town, which has brought in a kind of an influx of population. We're split evenly about from male to female, the female population being slightly higher, but it's about even. As far as adults in the community, 18 or over, about 40% of them have bachelor's degrees, and at average the age of the community is in their young 40s. We're a very big family population, so again we're looking at people with school-age children in their early 40s. Most occupations are blue-collar jobs. We have a lot of adults in town who have multiple jobs in order to kind of make ends meet, and we have a very small portion of salaried careers. In town, we do have a transportation system. There's a train station in town that runs straight from New Milford straight into New York City. Because we are about 15 minutes outside of New York City, we're in the very northern part of New Jersey. So we do have those people that do have careers or jobs inside the city. It is very easy for transportation into New York City. We have our population is mostly Caucasian. Our two biggest populations would be Hispanic, which there's a lot of diversity inside the Hispanic community, as well as Asian, and there's a big diversity inside the Asian community as well. Looking at communication channels, social media is really big in town. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, by adults and students alike. We also have the Patch. The Patch is an online news system, which it posts things for specific towns. So you could look at the New Milford Patch in order to get information specifically just about news in New Milford. Because we are close to New York City, we kind of have access, and our news channels, our radios, things like that are all going to be any kind of the big network news stations, because like I said, we are so close to New York City. Our newspapers is the Bergen Record, that's the county paper in Bergen County, and then the Twin Borough News, which is Bergenfield, Dumont, and New Milford's local paper to print things. Looking at community groups, like I said, there's a lot of community groups. Most of them aren't politically based. They're based in kind of helping benefit the community itself. So we've got the Recreation, Junior Football League, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Drug Alliance, the PTOs, the American Legion, the Elks Club, Senior Center, Swim Club, Chamber of Commerce. Like I said, many of these things are not politically motivated and are simply just there in order to benefit the town itself. The Junior Football League being a huge thing in town, from small children straight on up to high school members. Knowing the leadership in town, it is a small town in size and in feel, the fact that it's only 2.5 square miles, and the fact that it's a very close-knit community. Because of that, there isn't much changeover. There aren't a lot of people to run for office. There aren't a lot of people who can commit to running for office. So our mayor, our town council have been very much the same. The mayor has been the same for a while. The town council is kind of this revolving door of like the same kind of people over and over again. Also the recreation board and the police chief, these again are positions that are held for long periods of time. There isn't much changeover in those positions. Looking at their characteristics, based on what political party has the majority in the town council, that often sees kind of how a power shifts and who does different jobs and kind of what the town council focuses on for that time in which either the Democrats or the Republicans are the stronger kind of stronghold in town. The one thing is that all these leaders that I said is this group of kind of leaders that go over and over again to win these positions over, they have multiple facets of the borough, meaning that if you're on the Board of Education, you're probably on the rec board. If you're on, the borough council, then you're probably also on the Board of Education. And there's this kind of whole big, if you're on one board, you're often on others, and kind of having control in multiple areas. It shows great investment to the community, which is awesome that these group of people are invested so to the community. But the trouble being is that they're the only opinions that the town can have for a long time. And sometimes, change can be good. So kind of that would be a better idea. The other thing is that the multi-generational leadership, meaning that like fathers and daughters and sons and everything like that kind of take over each other's positions. Again, they're voted in by the town. It's, nothing like that, but it just seems like it's the same kind of people over and over again who are going to be the leaders in the town. Our economic conditions, our average household income is $75,000 a year. And now depending on the part of the country you're in, that might seem like a lot of money, but in the county that we live in, that is actually quite low. It's not the lowest inside the county, but it is quite low in the county itself. 12% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, and about 4.5%, which is about the state average, are unemployed. One thing economically that the town has done recently is that our small businesses are thriving. There's been a big push to kind of bring these small businesses and kind of build areas where they can put their shops and the town can support it. And so we have Glazed Donuts and Brain Freeze, the ice cream shop, and Tennis Flowers. And these are all like small businesses that came up from town residents who are kind of in town now. Tennis Flowers has been around for a long time, but they recently moved. She's a New Milford resident, and she recently moved back into the area to have the flower shop there. Section 201, Barrel and Brew are like sports bar, restaurant type things that have also come back that have really boosted the revenue for the town itself and provided a lot of jobs for people inside the town that needed jobs. Knowing the political structure, like I said, the mayor and the borough council make all the regulations. But recently, and there's been a huge tie between the superintendent and the mayor and the Board of Education and the town council because of, the many of them overlapping. And so recently the borough tax contribution to schools was raised, which again, brought about some questions from the community about what had happened and kind of how that came about. It's also supporting the district athletic fields. So the district wanted to place it somewhere. It was on borough property. The borough, they asked the borough to give it to them. The borough couldn't. And then they were talking about how if they put it there, it's a wetlands and they need drainage and all this other stuff and who's to pay for it. And they wanted the borough to split the cost and the schools, and then some of the town residents didn't think that was fair, that now their taxes were paying for it, but then they were also paying for it through other things. And, so it became a whole big thing about who was to pay for these brand new athletic fields. Looking at social tensions in the town. So our town is divided by 2 elementary schools. So there's 2 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. The 2 elementary schools are very much divided. Berkeley Street Elementary is a lower income school, meaning that there are a lot of rental properties on that side of town. There are a lot of apartments on that side of town, low income housing on that side of town. And and a lot of times they'll say oh, you're from Berkeley side. And then we've got Gibbs side. Gibbs is a higher income side of town. There's a lot of single family homes on that side of town, in which it's is two parents and then children living, whereas on the Berkeley side, you're looking at multiple family members living in an apartment or a 2-bedroom apartment, or maybe in some kind of rental property of some sort. So there's a big divide between that. And also, the PTO on Berkeley Street doesn't have as much participation as the one on Gibbs side of town does, which again can cause tension oftentimes between in council meetings and things like that, and what each side of town values and finds to be the most important. On the Berkeley side of town, in the apartments that we have a large population of apartments on that side of town. There have been a few shootings that were gang related in those complexes. We have a big openly gay population in town. We have a lot of gay couples who own property in town, which has helped push across a lot of gender neutral bathrooms, things like that for the LGBTQ plus community. So that has caused a little bit of social tension in town. The other thing, like I had mentioned, was the football field and the great divide as to who's going to pay for it, who's going to fund this, where is all this money going to come from. Because also what they were trying to push was that low income housing would come with the building of this new football field. It would have a football field, a shopping center, and then with that shopping center would also come low income housing. Some people in town didn't want more low-income housing in town. They also did not want the population that would come in with that. They didn't want their tax dollars paying for it. And it has since kind of been pushed through as to who's going to whatever, and building has begun on the field and the new shopping plaza. These are some sources of information. It's the Board of Education's website as well as the borough's website. Looking at the power structure, again, mayor and borough council, superintendent of schools, board of education, curriculum director of curriculum. But like I had stated earlier multiple times, these power positions do overlap. Often if you're on one committee, you're on others as well. If you're on one council, you're often on others. Looking at some of the multicultural issues inside of Milford, we've got two large populations, one of Indian immigrants and a large population of Aramaic immigrants. About 32% of our residents are foreign-born residents. And again, just looking at kind of they're valuing things different and they're concerned about different things. But looking at the Aramaic population is these are immigrants from the Middle East or Eastern Europe who are over here, and they're displaced. A lot of them are refugees or were once refugees, and they were displaced. They don't have a home country, so I can't call them, a nationality by a certain country. They're called Aramaic because they're from all over the place, and they came here to avoid religious persecution, essentially. And in that population, they're in town, so they're like a small population inside of town that functions in and of itself. Again, they don't really have issues with other people, but the issue being is that in school, when those children only want to play with those other children, or they don't want to make friends with other people, or they don't want to work with other people on class projects, that can become a little bit of an issue. Same thing goes with the population of students who come from India. They have very different values and concerns. We talk about overnight field trips and how a lot of these in other countries, that's unheard of, that your student would go away without their parents, without family members. And so again, this has been kind of different issues that arise inside the school. Knowing the power structure, I know that schools have to kind of function inside this power structure. And like I said, there's a very close relationship between the mayor, the superintendent, and the assistant superintendent. So that really, the leaders have been the same for the last 10 years. They've all worked together. So that's kind of been a little bit easier to kind of function inside that power structure and to help the schools to function inside of that power structure. But the principal in my building in David Owens is new, and he comes from a different socioeconomic school district than the one that we are then in Milford, and therefore he struggles sometimes to kind of function inside that power structure, in the fact that he will often try to just give the public exactly what they want, and the teachers often suffer because of it. So his relations with the community are great, but his relationships with his staff inside the building have suffered kind of in order to benefit his relationship with the community. Measuring public opinion, kind of looking at the community groups use school facilities. There's parent councils for the superintendent and the principal. We've open board meetings. We're very open with the community. The superintendent is very much out there. So like our public opinion, we do have a pretty strong public opinion. They're very welcome inside the schools and things like that. Finally, public opinion surveys. The borough actually put one out, and it was around the time of the football field debacle. So that was a little bit of a struggle and had mixed results. And then the school itself puts out some every year to the parents, the students, and the teachers. And again, results can be mixed depending on the topic.